Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and a pleasant good Tuesday morning to each and every one of you. Somehow we made it on the air. I mean, even without Casey McAllister, who's out on his honeymoon, I mean, the band is back together except for Casey not being here. We welcome you to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman, cast of thousands. It continues to grow by the day. Paul is back. Welcome back, Paulie.
Thank you, Tom.
I mean, you look like you're staring into Never Land over there.
We're all good. We're up and running. Everything's doing all right. Sorry, everybody. We're all good. Everything's good.
Well, the player formerly known as Mouse Cop, I don't know why that always has such a hard time getting off my lips, but made the point, Reed, that for every minute the show is late getting on the air, you take a 1% reduction in salary.
I know his name's Mouse Cop, but he doesn't have to police Mouse. Like, he doesn't have to do that. He's on my case all the time. He's in my head. I've been having nightmares about Mouse Cop, Tom.
BLP, as he says over and over again. Big League Paul. Jacob, Elliot, good morning, man. How we looking?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing great.
No complaints from me.
All right. I mean, we just keep growing and growing right here in Chatterbox Sports. It's a good thing. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10 to 12.
P.
Yes, you can join us on YouTube, or so we think. / Chatterbox Sports. If you'd prefer to join us in podcast form, we're growing by leaps and bounds, over 20% per month. Not bad. You search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman and you're dialed in. Now, look, before we go any further, there are things that are important in the world, and then there are things that are important in the world. 79 years ago today, June the 6th, 1944, Allied forces stormed and hammered the beaches of Normandy, kicking open Europe's front door, and the liberation was underway. God bless those brave heroes who helped crush the Nazis. We will never, never forget. All right, things started a little bit shaky last night for Andrew Abbott, and it's understandable that they would. He's only 24 years old. He's making his major league debut. He walks the first two batters in the second inning. Don't lie. Some of you were saying, uh-oh. Then his catcher, Luke Maile, comes out. Noticed a couple of flaws in his mechanics. Abbott took his advice and was simply magnificent from there on out. He became the first Reds pitcher since 1893, 60-plus years before World War II. 1893 to notch 6 scoreless innings in his major league debut while allowing no more than 1 hit. And you know what? Give it up to David Bell. We don't do a lot of that around here. But in a day and age where computers tell you a starting pitcher can't face a lineup for the third time around, I mean, God forbid we'd let it happen. David Bell said, numbers be damned, threw him out the window, and said, I like what I'm watching here. So the key decision from Bell comes in the 6th inning. After a leadoff walk, it's only a 2-0 game. And the heart of the order coming up now for the third time. He let Abbott stay in the game. His pitch count was right around 100. And he watched as a young left-hander retired the next 3 hitters, 2 on strikeouts, a third on a weak pop-up. Bullpen took care of the rest. Alexis Diaz is the best closer in the league. End of story. Tonight, the Dodgers come to town to start a 3-game series. Tony Gonsolin opposes right-hander Luke Weaver. First pitch at 7:10. Charlie Goldsmith from Cincinnati.com will join us coming up. He was at Abbott's debut last night. We'll talk about the Reds, mixing a little Bengals because he covers them as well. Jacob deGrom was moved to the 60-day injured list yesterday by the Texas Rangers, which means he can't return until sometime around the end of June, if even then. The former National League Cy Young Award winner hasn't pitched since April with soreness in his right elbow. We talked about this when they signed him. We thought of all the big money deals in the offseason, this was the worst deal of them all. They gave him $185 million as a free agent and he had made only 26 starts, 150 innings total over the last 2 years. Is the Oakland A's move to Las Vegas in jeopardy? Apparently so, after the state legislature failed to vote on funding for a new stadium before taking its summer recess. The proposal could potentially be considered in a special legislative session at a date to be determined, so stay tuned. Football news, lots of it. Bengals continue OTAs today downtown. It's not mandatory until minicamp next week, but just about every single player is in town. Did you see the NFL Network, boys?
Did not see this.
Went on a game-by-game, predicting every single game of the Bengals' upcoming season. How about 14-3? Would you take that?
Does that get the 1 seed? Might.
It does get the 1 seed.
I would take 14-3.
14-3 they predicted. If you're wondering, they have losses to Baltimore, to Pittsburgh, and to Cleveland. They have wins over the Bills and Chiefs at home and a win over the 49ers out in the Bay Area. The NFL is investigating Indianapolis cornerback and kick returner Isaiah Rodgers for possible violations of the league's gambling policy. This is becoming a big deal. Rodgers has already gone on social media and said he takes full responsibility for his actions. Stanley Cup Finals continued last night. It's all about Las Vegas. They blast Florida 7-2 and lead that series 2 games to none. And FC Cincinnati plays tonight, back in the Lamar Hunt Open Cup.
You love that, don't you?
I do. Yeah. I mean, what would a season be without a season inside of a season?
Got to have a tournament within the season.
You
it's
have
season
to have
inception.
it. You have to have it. I mean, what else would there be in life if you weren't playing 2 seasons at the same time?
I love it. We should do the MLB. They don't play enough games in Major League Baseball, Tom.
I tell you what I do wish they would do, though, in MLB. I do wish they would do what they do in the minor leagues, and that's start all over at the All-Star break.
Yeah. They did that, one time in Major League history?
They were forced to.
Yeah, they're forced to because
81.
And the Reds had the best record in Major League Baseball and didn't make the postseason.
And the Kansas City Royals had the second best record in Major League Baseball, did not make the postseason. But that was due to a work stoppage. A lot of people don't like that idea. I think it's kind of cool. I think if you have a team that, whoever wins the first half, they go to the playoffs when all is said and done. And then maybe a team was injured, had a lot of guys out, whatever it might be. You start all over at the All-Star break. And then whoever qualifies for the playoffs, all of them convene, and you get the whole thing together. It'll never happen, but it's nice to think about. Real pleasure to have Charlie Goldsmith. I'm not sure if I introduced this guy from Cincinnati.com as a reporter on the Reds, as a reporter on the Bengals, or a reporter on anything and everything. Charlie, welcome to Off the Bench.
How you doing? Good to see you.
If somebody asked you, Charlie, which of those two or any others would you prefer?
Reporter on the Reds and Bengals, I guess I'll take, but just happy to be working for the Inquirer and happy to be talking to you right now.
How many years you been there now?
It's year 3.
Year 3. I mean, it's unbelievable. You do such a great job, and we read your stuff all the time. Let's start with last night. Andrew Abbott. Loved your recap and the way that, oftentimes the write-up will be about the kid, and deservedly so. It was an incredible Major League debut. But I love how you broke it down in talking about the visit to the mound by his catcher and what was going on. Walk us through all that, because you were down there in the locker room. You watched the game, and then you were down in the locker room after the game.
Yes, so Andrew Abbott's a guy who rarely walks hitters, but he walked 3 batters in the first inning and a third. And in the second inning, Luke Maley, the Reds' backup catcher, comes out and goes, all right, Andrew, trust your stuff. You're nibbling. Be the guy who has the fastball that rises through the strike zone at an analytical rate that you rarely see. Be the guy who has a curveball who has a spin rate that you rarely see. After that, Abbott really took that advice of course, it makes sense. All right, you can make that adjustment on the fly, but we've seen a lot of these debuts. Abbott was able to do that in his debut in a way that, Nick Lodolo's debut wasn't the prettiest. Graham Ashcraft's debut wasn't the prettiest. Hunter Green had some ups and downs over the course of his debut, but Abbott really stayed the course. His best inning was his last inning, and he showed exactly the type of guy that, has the Reds viewing him as a top 100 prospect in baseball and a long-term part of their rotation.
All right, I always love getting inside the game inside the game. So let me, though, kind of take that a little further with Abbott and Maile. By the time Abbott got up here, it's not like Maile had a chance to catch him even in a bullpen session. So I'm assuming, and it's assuming, that for Maile, sharp guy, smart guy, knows what he's doing back there. That is without a doubt. He must have watched some kind of video of Abbott, or a lot of video of Abbott before he caught him, to be able to pick up, just a little flaw in his mechanics that he saw.
Yeah, so Maile caught him some during spring training. The Reds are really good about incorporating their catchers in the game planning process for the pitchers. They do that just a lot more and give the catchers a lot more of a voice in that process. So Maile really knew what he was seeing and was prepared. He said he noticed in the second inning Abbott was coming slow out of the windup, or Abbott was coming too fast out of the windup, and that his arm was kind of lagging a little bit. He noticed some really small details like that, even though it was just his first time working with Abbott. That's part of what's made Maile such a big addition to the Reds this year. Same with Kirk Casale, having two such veteran catchers who just have such a good feel and instinct for pitch calling and what to say during mound visits and in-game adjustments. For a pitching staff as young as the Reds, that kind of stuff really means a lot. That's why backup catcher was one of maybe the Reds' biggest priority during the offseason, because of moments like you saw with Maile and Abbott yesterday.
All right, then you get to decision time for David Bell, as you got into. Look, I understand a little bit of the analytics. I don't immerse myself in that stuff. I think it's great information to have. But having been around baseball for a while, I think there's something to be said of what your eyes tell you you're watching. Clearly, the Brewers were not getting good swings against Abbott. The only way they were getting on base is if he walked them. He had only allowed one base hit. So now key decision time in that sixth inning. You got the heart of the order coming up. The old adage about, let starting pitchers go through a lineup 3 times. He decides this time that he likes what he sees and staying with it.
That was a big moment. That was a really big moment. We've seen it a lot with, less established starting pitchers. We've even seen, Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft, when he was pitching well, have to earn that opportunity to go through the third time of the order. And yet in Andrew Abbott's major league debut, he didn't just get that opportunity. He came out and with a runner on base threw probably his second best pitch of the game, a curveball strike 3 looking. Like I wrote in my notes, who has curveballs strike 3 looking anymore? We just don't see that a ton, and he got it to get William Contreras out, an all-star catcher. And then his best pitch of the game to strike out Christian Yelich, elevating that fastball, showing that, again, like I mentioned earlier, the unique analytical rise he has on that pitch, getting Yelich to swing under it. Those 2 strikeouts gave David Bell the confidence to stick with Abbott through the rest of the inning. He got a fly out to end it, and literally you couldn't have asked for any more from someone in their first game in the big leagues.
All right, you touched on a couple of other names there, and just bring us up to speed here, Charlie. Any idea, because he sounds like he has no idea, what is going on with Graham Ashcraft?
So Graham Ashcraft throws 3 pitches, and let's do some process of elimination here. There's the slider, which was a pitch that he completely changed during spring training and took Major League Baseball by storm. Maybe one of the best pitches in the league in April. Well, the league adjusted. They realized that especially early in counts, he wasn't throwing it for strikes. So they're just laying off the slider. He's not getting that chase, and that pitch has become less effective. Pitch number 2, his 2-seam fastball. This is the pitch that he added in 2021 to become a guy who was a no-name prospect to a guy who became a big prospect for the Reds. Graham says he has just no feel for his 2-seam anymore. He stopped throwing it. He's trying a new grip out to see if that can save the pitch, but he has lost all feel for that pitch and again has stopped throwing it. So that's 2 out of 3. That leaves the cutter. Now teams are just waiting for the cutter early in the at-bat. They feel like they know what's coming. They know exactly what they want their pitch to be early in the at-bat. And the beauty of his 2-seam is that goes one way and the cutter goes the other way. And now he only has the cutter that goes to his left. So he just has fewer answers. Teams have a better sense of what to expect. He is deep in the adjustment process right now of finding that new grip for his 2-seam fastball. He's kicked around the idea of adding a changeup, and he has to find a way to locate his slider for strikes. that's a lot to do on the fly in the middle of a season. We'll see, what his future in the rotation for the short term looks like. I'm still a big believer in Ashcraft's long-term potential because that cutter is something that, no one else in baseball can quite do what he can, but he is squarely in the middle of kind of a tipping point of his season right now.
All right, now look, I'm not putting these words in your mouth. I say them because I've seen it far too often through 30-plus years in baseball. It's not that teams are lying to you about how healthy guys are, and I know you get into the whole HIPAA thing. I get all that. But I just think that oftentimes they don't tell the full truth, and it doesn't make them bad people. When I see something like this with Hunter Green, my initial skepticism, kicks into high gear. I'm like, wait a minute now. Okay, he's had a bad hip. He's pitched arguably two of his best games of the season consecutively, right? Even pitching with a sore hip. It's not like they backed him up 1 or 2 days. They back him up a week. Am I overreacting?
Yeah, he has a bullpen, I believe Thursday or Friday, but I'm pretty sure it's Thursday. Nothing will change between now and then. He's on track to make this start on Sunday, and the only way that could change is if he comes out and throws this bullpen later in the week, and he does, report some more stiffness, some more soreness, then we have something here. But everything I've been told right now is, again, look at the way he pitched most recently. David Bell stressed this multiple times. Everything I've been hearing behind the scenes is that the Reds have confidence that he can, just overcome this like everyone's overcoming some sort of wear and tear over the course of the season. Certainly a little bit of a concern. But again, unless he throws that bullpen later in the week and something bad happens, I have heard that there's no long-term concern yet.
Okay, then there's Lodolo. We initially, and again, this is what, kind of kicks it into gear again. We initially hear it's a calf thing. Then all of a sudden we hear now it's a bone thing right there in the shin area, right? And I've broken that bone a couple times, both of them in there, tibia, fibula. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm a slightly heavy, 59-year-old dude. But I know that that's not an easy injury to come back from. What are you hearing, if anything, about Lodolo?
I mean, he's in a scooter. There's no way to, that's the only thing that matters right now. He's not on his feet. He's off his feet. There's a long way to go from being in a scooter to being back on the major league mound. He has left calf tendinosis, which tendinosis compared to tendinitis is a chronic condition. So they're looking at different ways to kind of prevent this from flaring up again in a negative way, because it won't just go away. It's had an impact too, or it's one caused the other, or the other caused the other. But the stress reaction in his tibia, either that caused the stress on his calf, or the calf caused the stress on his tibia. They're searching for that answer. They're trying to, find the root of the problem to make sure it doesn't become a long-term issue. But anytime maybe your best pitcher's been in a boot for a month and on a scooter for a month, that's concerning. The story of Nick Lodolo's season will be this injury and how long it takes to come back from this. And again, there's nothing else to say right now, except that he is a long way from pitching, certainly concerning. The Reds were very frustrated when he got hurt because he is one of their most important players, and they're pitching or playing without him for a while.
All right, look, I would imagine, Charlie, the question you get asked around town, people know who you are. You're in high demand to do a lot of shows like this. I have to believe topic A is Elly De La Cruz. Now, there's been a lot of speculation, when he's coming up. Some thought it might have been on the last road trip. Others thought it might have been on this homestand to start things off against the Brewers. Obviously, that's not happened. Do you think this is a case of they don't think he's ready to come up, or the dilemma they're going to face of who's going to play where once they do bring him up?
I think he's ready. I think Elly De La Cruz is more than good enough to help the Reds win games right now. And that's why I think we'll see him called up any day now within the next week, 2 weeks. I'd be shocked if it wasn't by the end of the road trip. Frankly, I expect sometime between now and the end of that road trip he'll be called up. I do think there are some conversations they have to have and they have to plan for. Elly De La Cruz, when he comes up, since he has such star potential, the entire ecosystem in some ways does change. Elly De La Cruz getting called up impacts Matt McClain and Jonathan India, and Nick Senzel and Spencer Steer, and the structure of the lineup and all of these tangible ways. It impacts everyone. And from a preparation standpoint, that takes, preparing. From a conversation standpoint, you want to make sure you have those conversations with the players to be ready for Elly's call-up. For example, you saw Jonathan India taking ground balls at third base yesterday. He's done that a few times recently. He's getting, more experience in different positions and versatility. If, McLean plays second, India can play third, stuff like that. So they're working through those types of things. That's a very big reason he hasn't been called up yet. We will see him up very soon. There's a plan in place, and they're certainly on the trajectory of Ellie's arrival. That's what they're really preparing for right now.
You really look, Charlie, at all three of these things, and we tend to talk about, I say three areas, not things. Okay, we tend to talk about how the Reds and their system, high level, their system already at the big leagues, they're loaded up with guys who are quote-unquote middle infielders. Some of them can go play third if they need to. McLean and De La Cruz and India have all done that at some point in time in their careers, albeit college or in the minor leagues. You're starting now to get to a point as well, however, where, whatever decision you're going to make about the shortstop and second base, okay, well, let's just assume for a second India now you're considering playing him a little bit at third with De La Cruz at short and McLean at second base. Now you get into, though, the second area, which is the corner positions and DH, right? How do you think all of this ultimately works out? Steer was playing very well at third. In spring training, they didn't think so. You reported on this. Now, all of a sudden, the season starts, he was playing pretty well at third. Then all of a sudden, he has to go over to first. Senzel comes into third. You've got Encarnacion Strand, who is, if De La Cruz is hot in AAA, Encarnacion Strand is just as hot as he is, right? 14 bombs, hitting 350, on-base percentage over 400, all these kinds of things. So he's got to be knocking on the door. And then lingering way out there in the woods is Votto, who's out on his rehab. How do you think ultimately, if you were a betting man, and we get to September 1st of this year, so let's do two things here. September 1st of this year, opening day next year. Who is playing where?
September 1st of this year, I think there won't be set starters at most positions. I get the sense that their plan is to rotate, to use the DH, have India play a lot of second still, a bit of third, maybe a bit of try him out at first, play at DH some, and keep him in the lineup every day that way. McLean, I could see him playing, the rest of the starts at second base, a few days a week at short. Ellie most days at short, maybe 1 or 2 days or 3 at third. Rotate, keep everyone in the mix, keep your options open, and really prevent any final decisions until you have all of the information, as much of the information as possible. Then when you're looking down the road in the future, when India has a full off season to prepare for a new position, I do get the sense that he could be an impact left fielder. That's something you hear brought up a lot. What India could do in the outfield, especially because they see Matt McLean as a guy who they think can be a Gold Glove second baseman and has an upside defensively there that India doesn't quite have. I do think this is important too to stress, though. Like, I'm very high on McLean, I'm very high on Ellie, I'm very high on Christian Encarnacion Strand. India is the only one who's really hit consistently for a while at the big league level. Of course, some great weeks for Matt McLean, but India by far is the most established guy you have right now. I don't give up on that guy. Make sure you do everything you can to keep that guy in the top of your lineup. You see, the Padres have guys making a lot more money, but you see the Padres moving Tatis to the outfield to try to maximize the roster with the personnel they have and find solutions that way. And Tatis has, continued to provide value in the team that way. India's importance to the Reds relatively is similar, considering the Reds don't have the big name stars. India is basically their big name star in addition to Ellie. I do everything he can to keep him at the top of the order. I'm open-minded to seeing what he looks like in the outfield next season.
Would you be open-minded if some have suggested? It's been out there. I don't know if India's talked about it or not, but once you get an eye on all these guys, you consider trading India?
No one's untradeable. The Twins traded Arias to the Marlins last offseason for Pablo Lopez, a really good top of the rotation starter. And, everyone has their value. I think both Miami and Minnesota are pleased with the results of that trade. Maybe the Reds do have a need in the outfield long term, or you always need another top of the rotation starter. But like I was saying earlier, India is the only guy who's been really good for a while of this group. He does have the leadership role in the team. He does have the presence. Spencer Steer said the other day, India is the guy who establishes the identity that we're trying to play with and leads the Reds in that way. I do everything I can to keep that guy, even if it does mean changing positions, But certainly, again, no one is untradeable. And I'll be interested to see, that will be the defining question of the Reds offseason, whether it's a position change from India, someone else makes a position change, or if trade conversations pick up.
All right, last thing I want to ask you about the Reds. How long, or perhaps they're there already, how long do you start getting worried about Tyler Stevenson? I mean, look, he can have a game here or there where he gets a hit or a couple of hits, but let's be honest about it. This has not been good from what you expected. And expectations are dangerous, especially as they pertain to young players. But when you start talking about a guy who loves to catch, got injured catching, with a concussion, and then he got hit, and that was a freak play that knocked him out for the year last year. But, look, the bottom line is he's always been a catcher. He likes being a catcher. We all understand why they're doing what they're doing, whether it's DHing occasionally, not as many games behind the plate, playing a little bit of first base, all those kinds of things. But when do you think, or are they there already, about getting concerned about his offense?
I don't think there's long-term concern, but there is short-term concern. We know this because they entered the year with a very concrete plan for Tyler Stevenson, and that plan changed. He was originally supposed to play play first, was it 3 out of 10 days, basically? They've had Tyler stop working at first base. He has not taken ground balls there anymore. He hasn't played there since April, and that's because they want him focusing on his catching and his hitting. And that is a sign to me that, they want him to get more focus and more opportunity to improve those specific areas of his game, because what they were doing wasn't working. He just hasn't looked like himself. He's a guy who, when he's at his best, just looks more comfortable at the plate than anybody, and he just hasn't quite been that guy recently. He's working on some adjustments. He's trying to lay off the inside pitch. I still think he's their catcher of the future, but this is a big couple months from him to try to get that confidence back and become the guy he was last year.
All right, look, you also have your finger on the pulse of the Bengals. And, look, we had James Rapine on yesterday. We talked about it for a long time here. He doesn't have to be here. But what are your thoughts of this whole Jonah Williams thing?
I think Jonah Williams has become underrated. We forget how middle of the road the Bengals right tackles have been, how they've rotated 30 to 32-year-olds who have been inconsistent over the course of their career. What if the Bengals went out and signed a guy who was a former first-round pick entering his 5th year in the league, someone who, is really a strength is the way he understands the playbook and the scheme and blitz pickups and all that kind of stuff, someone who has played solid enough while not showing star power or really a ton of high-end consistency against the best players in the league. But there are only 5 right tackles in the league you can make that case for. I think he by far is the favorite to be the Bengals starting right tackle right now. He gives them, again, some traits that they haven't had at right tackle in a while. And, I expect him to be at mandatory minicamp coming up next week. I expect him to be invested. It's a contract year for him, too, heading into the regular season. And, again, if Jonah Williams is the guy you're worried about, Jonah Williams 2 years ago was the guy you were least worried about. So that shows you how much the line as a whole has improved.
All right, and that's 100% accurate. Couldn't agree more about that. But it is a new position for him. And so, look, I don't know. We've had guys on this program. We had on Willie Anderson last week, and he said that move from one tackle to the other tackle spot is a big deal, especially as it pertains to your brain and your left foot on one side, your right foot on the other. Willie said that, he would talk to guys whose bodies all of a sudden started to change or break down because they were using muscles in different parts of their body on one side that they weren't necessarily using on the other side. The whole brain aspect of all of that. I mean, he got pretty deep in the woods on this stuff. So for me, and again, it's just my opinion, I just think there's been a goal. Not to say you can't make up for it. I just think there's been some lost time here on some things that he could have and should have been doing. Maybe he's built up enough equity down there with his teammates where they're just like, okay, this is the business of football. We ain't worried about it.
That's fair, but life's all about what you're willing to put up with, right? And, last year the Bengals had a right tackle in La'el Collins who didn't do anything in the training, basically anything in all of training camp because he had back issues. And you can make the same case, about the mental and physical hurdles of coming back from that. You had a guy in Riley Reif in 2021 who was playing through all sorts of injuries over the course of the season. In 2020, it was Bobby Hart who wasn't good. And if you would rank the problems, I would take the guy who's moving to a new position over the guy who missed all of training camp, over the guy who wasn't good. When you're ranking problems and concerns, I would take the problems or issues or concerns that come with Jonah because, frankly, they're less concerning to me than the others. And by the way, the other two guys he's competing with, one of them's Collins coming off a torn ACL. We'll see when he practices at any point in training camp. The other is Jackson Carman, who's making that exact same position change. So I don't think there's a better, more comfortable answer at right tackle than Jonah Williams, and I don't think they've had a more comfortable answer at right tackle in a couple of years.
All right, last thing I'm going to ask you, my friends here in the chat that are watching our show every single day, they told me I'm tired for asking this question, but I'm going to continue to ask it because I like hearing different opinions on this, okay? Are the Bengals better today on paper than they were, and I'm not going to say the AFC Championship game because they had all the offensive linemen that were hurt, but that group that started 15 straight games together. Are the Bengals better today than they were last year?
Depends on how good Nick Scott and Dax Hill are.
Yep.
That, to me, is the most intriguing story of the season. Dax actually offers some playmaking and some turnover possibilities that the Bengals didn't have. But, when you're in the league of where you're not really competing in the AFC North, you're in your own division with Mahomes, Allen, the Eagles, the 49ers, and the other Super Bowl contenders. How you do against the elite quarterbacks will shape your season. Jesse Bates and Von Bell were as good against elite quarterbacks as any safety duo in all of football. That's my biggest question when I, really watch them in full pads in training camp, how quickly they hit the ground running. Big picture, if I were to guess now, I'd say yeah, especially because they are better, especially because, when the Bengals lost last year, take out the Ravens game in week 5, they lost to the Steelers in week 1 because they couldn't block. They lost to the Cowboys the next week because they couldn't block. They lost to the Browns in the middle of the season because they couldn't block. They lost to the Chiefs in the AFC title game because they couldn't block Chris Jones. Their line is much better now. And so for all that, I would guess the Bengals would be better. But again, the X factor is those two safeties.
All right. Charlie, you're awesome, man. I'd love to have you come back. Thanks so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy the ball game tonight.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Charlie Goldsmith. Man, he's on it, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
That dude is on it.
He's on it.
Dialed in, as I like to say.
Tom, I love how you keep asking.
I'm going to keep asking. I'm going to keep asking.
Everyone says yes.
No, time out. He says the same thing. He said the exact same thing that I have said all year long.
Which is,
I am deeply concerned about the safeties. There is no way on God's earth, not to say they can't be halfway through the year, not to say they can't be by the end of the year, but there is no way on God's earth any reasonable human being who's watched any football at all, even if they've never watched football, you just look at the back of their bubblegum card. Mm-hmm. There is no way on God's earth you can say their defense, which is a big part of their team, okay? There's no way on God's earth you can say that you are not concerned about the safeties compared to who was there last year. Like him or not, Jesse Bates was a damn good player for this franchise for 6 years.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Gamer, right? I mean, the business side of things, those happen. Von Bell, ultimate gamer. Both of them captains. Bell changed the whole sort of mindset and spirit of this defense when he walked in the door. And now all of a sudden, you just heard him say it. Don't listen to me. Now all of a sudden, you're starting, Taylor Britt back there. Mm-hmm. I mean, Dax Hill back there.
Dax Hill.
And Nick Scott. I mean, maybe they'll be better than both of those guys. I don't know. So the question ultimately becomes, if you're going to judge, are they better or not? Really, it seems like it comes down to this. You tell me if you agree with this or not,
okay.
Right? It really comes down to, and he pointed this out as well, do you believe the increase in improvement by signing Orlando Brown, right? Do you believe the increase in the offensive line's potential, right? And he just said the reason they lost their three of the games because they couldn't block. Mm-hmm. 4 games, right? Including the championship game with a lot of guys out. Does that offset or surpass what you've lost in the back end of your defense from production standpoint and leadership standpoint? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, no, it is. It's pros, cons, adding and subtracting. That's what you're doing. But I've got to ask you a question, Tom. Out of every unit on the defensive side, which is the least valuable, would you say? Because I think a lot of people would argue that the safety is probably the least valuable unit on the defensive side of the ball. You know, obviously defensive line and cornerbacks are the first two, but then you're just arguing, is a linebacker or a safety more important for your defense? And the safety is the only spot that has gotten worse. The defensive line has gotten better. You can argue, although they lost Eli Apple, the cornerbacks have certainly gotten better, and they bring the linebackers back. So it's just, how much do you value the safety position? And I think that there's enough talent there, and I think that is, you know, an overvalued part of the defense, I guess is what I should say. So I'm not too worried about it.
Okay, well, that's a fair and valid point. I'm not going to argue that at all. All I know is one single quote. This is all I know. Mm-hmm. One simple quote by the man who's forgotten more about it than I'll ever know, and that would be Lou Anarumo. You remember the quote?
I do remember it.
Do you remember the quote?
I do remember it.
All right. The quote was, "My darkest day would be if Jesse Bates and Von Bell left." That's not Thom Brennaman. That's Lou Anarumo. I don't know. Guy knows more about it than I do.
Yeah, well.
All right. All right, Ham and Eggers, take it away. We got lots to talk about. I want to talk about Abbott's game last night. Talk a little bit more about the Bengals. Got a few other things here in there on the radar. This is Rodgers guy in Indy. Not getting a lot of news. But this gambling thing for players in the NFL, where's this thing going? The teams are all in bed. The league is in bed with gambling. It's okay for the league. It's okay for the teams. But if your car pulls up in the Colts facility and you want to place a bet on an NBA game, your ass is out. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ham and Eggers. Here we go.
Mr. President.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great, trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Okay.
The Are the Bengals Better question is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data center world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and
productivity.
Look at that. Look at this chemistry.
Man.
Visit Encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here. And while we're talking about athletes, as we do, because this is a sports show, if you want to be a superior athlete, it all comes down to training and hydration. You are a better athlete when you are better hydrated, and there is no better way to hydrate yourself with a premium alkaline water that is made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. That is Pawnee water. You know it. If you've seen this show enough, we've been talking about it for months, and that's because we can't stop talking about it. It is the best tasting water in the world. And as you've known, alkaline water has been shown to support superior hydration benefits to regular water in a clinical study. And they do it with natural limestone filtration. They don't add anything like those other alkaline waters. It is nothing but water, baby. You can get that at Pawnee Water. That is PAHHNI water.com. And you can see where you can find this great tasting water. We keep plugging this. Take a picture of Pawnee Water. If you find it in the store, buy it. We'll retweet it here on our main account.
That's right. And speaking of retweeting things, we do want to give a shout out. Thank you, OJ, for the super chat. I've been trying here to figure out how to put it up on the screen, and I'll be honest, I'm waving the white flag on that one. But we do appreciate you sending in the $5 super chat. So thank you very much on that, OJ. We do have it in here. Make sure you drink Pawnee Water, bet with Betfred, get your coffee from UDF, and thank you to Encore for sponsoring the Are the Bengals Better? We really, they are the official sponsor of that question, whether they like it or not.
I love that question.
I don't know if they want to be associated with that question, but they are the sponsor of that question.
It fires up the chat immediately every single time. And we know that there's big breaking news. We're going to wait till Tom gets back in the studio to break that news to him to get his honest reaction. So we'll talk about it here in a second. Paul, what are you doing tonight?
I am, I don't think I'm doing anything tonight.
3-2-1 night?
Oh, the Reds.
I'm going. Jacob's going.
Whoa.
Mark Mouse is going. My pops. Oh, yeah.
Mark's going?
We're going to have ourselves a nice little Tuesday.
Oh, boy. Jacob, you're going?
I am, yes, sir. Haven't missed a Tuesday game since they started 3-2-1s.
I
Wow.
have stopped going to Bengals games with my dad because I can't keep up. I will start drinking a beer, and he'll look at me like, "You ready for another one?" Especially on a hot day like this, and then all of a sudden I'm getting another one in my hand. Next thing you know, I'm here to watch Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout play against the Angels, and I can't even see straight. There's about 3 Ohtanis out there and 4 Trouts. So I've stopped. I've had an embargo with going to Reds games with my dad, but we're breaking it tonight for 3-2-1 night. So I'm excited about it.
Thom, we are going to welcome you back here with the biggest breaking. I mean, I don't think this is an exaggeration to say that this might be the biggest breaking news story of the year.
All right.
This is, and not a shtick here. This is, I hate that we have to qualify this when it's coming from us over here at the table, but it's not a shtick. This is actually big breaking news. The PGA Tour has agreed to merge with LIV Golf as one entity. So all of the major golf tours and tournaments will all be now under one umbrella. PGA and LIV are merging, and this is a huge deal from what it sounds like, Thom. This is going to change the name of the PGA Tour. They're going to play it under a new name. I don't know what that means for the history of the PGA Tour. I don't know what that means for all the records. I don't know what that means for everything that golf has built over the last 150 years. But all these guys that went and took the money and went to LIV and now I guess have sort of in a way been vindicated. They look like the smartest guys in the room. They went and they got paid. They got a year of bad PR, but I don't think any of them care about that.
Sorry, we were talking about my Sorry about that. We were talking about my dad when the ham and egger section, but we're back. But Thom, these guys took hundreds of millions of dollars. In return, they lost their tour card. It then came out that they could go play in majors, so they're winning majors again. And 1 year later, they took the hundreds of millions of dollars, and they got their tour card back. Look, I can't believe this.
I've been asking people this question about this, and they look at me like I had 4 heads. Kind of like the way this show's going right now.
Hey.
Whoa.
Paul.
Oh, what?
Okay, there we are. Hi. Nice to see you.
We were on. That was the
Welcome.
TVs. That was
Welcome
the
back.
TVs. We were still on.
We're still live.
Look, I have been asking this question because to me this seemed like this was a direction sooner or later this thing was going to end up with. Now, some of the details that are starting to leak out about this thing is here's what's even more amazing, in my opinion. Okay, we all know, and this is where I got to be honest with you. I mean, if there is ever anything that applies to money talks and bullshit walks, this is it. Okay? The high and mighty out there, and you decide on who they are. Okay? Talked about Saudi Arabian money. Okay? Despite the fact that the LPGA Tour, and that's a separate entity, I get it, but that the LPGA Tour was the number one sponsor of the LPGA Tour is Saudi Arabian money. Number one, by far. I think they said of the 32, if I read right, of the 32 biggest sponsors of the PGA Tour, 18 or 19 of the 32 do business in Saudi Arabia. Okay? So look, if you want to say it's blood money, you call it whatever you want. I'm not calling it that. All right? But that's what the high and mighties and tell you how to live your life. Right? They all said, we're not getting in bed with the Saudis. No way. Even though all these companies that pay us all these tens of millions of dollars a year, they're in bed in Saudi Arabia and doing business. Here's the deal. On this new thing, the governor of Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, the guy who funded the entire LIV Tour, right? This is the money behind the fund that started LIV Golf. He will join the board of the PGA Tour. This guy is on the board, okay? Well, hold on. That's not enough. The same guy is going to be the chairman of this new group. The chairman. Okay, so you can dress this up and say it's kind of folding into the PGA. Mr. Monahan, of course, who is the PGA Tour Commissioner, Jay Monahan, he will be the CEO and the PGA Tour having a majority stake in this new venture. Okay? So, the PIF, which is this fund, has dumped more than $2 billion into the golf enterprise, which critics out there, as I mentioned, have claimed is a form of sports washing. That's what they call it, sports washing, to repair the Saudi Arabian monarchy's history of human rights violations. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here. I read a lot about this stuff just because I find it interesting, but I'm no expert on any of these things. But what I do know here is this is an unbelievable deal. It's an unbelievable announcement, but it's even further evidence of where's the money.
Money always wins.
And money will trump all of those who, at the end of the day, tell you that we can't be doing this because of ... You fill in the blank on any topic out there.
How do you feel if you're the guys who turned down the Live Tour money? Tiger Woods turned down $800 million, Tom, to plant a flag and say, I'm morally right, I'm going to stick with the PGA. Of course, Tiger Woods doesn't need the money, but $800 million?
If you're a borderline PGA guy, and I'm not talking about the guys, because you had to have the guys like Tiger and Rory who have made their money, don't need the money, and somebody needed to be on the side of the PGA, and they were. Those were those guys. I'm talking about the borderline guys, the guys who were good, maybe win some tournaments here and there, but aren't really competing for top tens in the majors consistently. Whoever those guys were that maybe got offered money that we don't know about, that turned it down because they wanted to do the morally right thing and stay with the PGA Tour. How do those guys feel right now? Jay Monahan looks like the biggest weasel in the world, right?
Well, I mean, and what about all these fans? And look, some of you are out there. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But what about all these fans? Oh, my God. The LIV Tour. It's the evil empire. Right?
Yeah.
Hate the LIV Tour. Hate the Saudi money. Hate the guys that left. Now, all of a sudden,
they're back.
You okay to just welcome everybody under the fold, under one big happy family now? Of course you are. You know why? Because you're not going to have tournaments that were PGA-sanctioned events where all of a sudden there's no Brooks Koepka. There's no Dustin Johnson, right? There's no all these guys.
Phil tweeting, awesome day today. Phil.
You don't think he's sticking his chest out a little bit today, do you?
Oh, my God.
I mean, at the end of the day, Greg Norman is the face of LIV, but Phil Mickelson is the current player's face of LIV, right?
Yeah. Yes.
He's a guy. I mean, they all just slaughtered this guy, right? Rory, all of them. Killing Mickelson, right?
So, Tom, and I guess maybe we don't play any sad music here, but here's the only highlight I can remember from the LIV Tour. Here's Chase Koepka's hole-in-one. Brooks' brother in Australia.
There we go. That's pretty good. That's really good. That looks like 16 at the Phoenix Open.
That's awesome. Are they really going to rename the company?
So that's what it's saying here. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. There's not a lot out about this yet.
That's what they're saying is that it's not going to be the PGA Tour anymore. It's not. So imagine this. Imagine you are Rory McIlroy and you turn down the money, like you said.
Right.
And you're doing hundreds of millions of dollars, which, to be fair, again, these guys probably don't need. But you turn down the money.
I mean, not needing $100 million.
I know. But they don't need it as much as like the borderline guys do.
I get it.
You turn down this money, And all of a sudden this comes out. And not only do you merge with LIV, but there's a potential that there are going to be new record books. You're playing under a new name. Is LIV the winner here?
It's hard to say. Till we learn more about it, it's a perfectly logical question.
Maybe winner is too strong because we don't know enough details of this yet. We only have the press release from the PGA Tour and some other little details here and there. But I think you can at least ask the question at this point did LIV Golf get more out of this than the PGA Tour did? And I think that's a very logical way to look at this.
There's no doubt.
For the PGA
question is yes.
For the PGA Tour, for it not to be called the PGA Tour anymore, and whatever the history, there's no way they're going to like start fresh on history. That just can't happen, right? Right?
No, I think you're right. They're not.
But,
I mean, LIV hasn't been around long enough to sort of alter all those sorts of record books or things like that. But I know where you're going.
But I'm just saying, they make up some new name, Major League Golf.
Right.
Whatever.
World Golf, whatever.
Whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, whatever
Saudi
it is.
Golf.
Yeah, whatever it is. And they just start making new records there. Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, listen, in the release, right? We know about all the legal battles and all this kind of thing, but they agree to, quote unquote, merge and move forward in a larger commercial business. Commercial being the key word there, because that is just another word for
money.
How long do you think this has been in the works? Do you think it was the Brooks Koepka thing that started this? Because I know there's been a bunch of lawsuits between these LIV and the PGA for a while now. But was it the Brooks winning the PGA Championship, getting another exemption? So half those LIV guys are exempted from all the majors anyway. So you're going to see them in all the tournaments on the PGA anyway. But do you think Brooks's win on the PGA Championship sparked this?
I think it helped it. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
I also think, though, that at the end of the day, and it's going to be really interesting to see the players' role in all of this behind the scenes, right? Because, look, all of these guys that went over to LIV, they still want to be able to qualify in the points. They want to be able to play in the Ryder Cup, all of those kind of things that were in jeopardy, okay? They want that. They also want to be able to play in the regular events. The fans want them to play in the regular. I mean, I got to tell you, the Memorial Tournament has always been one of the best tournaments there is. After the majors, you can make an argument that the TPC and the Memorial are the two biggest non-major events every single year. It's Jack Nicklaus's tournament. Everybody wants to be there, right? Now, all of a sudden, I mean, Hovland's a big name. And there was maybe one other name on there that most people, recognize. But outside of that, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's just not. And so I think the golf fans ultimately went on this, right?
I think so. Yeah, they're definitely the winners. I mean, Paul said, is LIV winning or PGA winning? I think the fans win first off, and the golfers that signed with LIV originally win second, because they got their money and now they're getting their tour cards back, it at least seems, in some capacity. So those are definitely the two winners. I mean, Brooks Koepka won the PGA Championship, and we weren't going to get to watch him. I mean, unless you're tuning into the CW, we weren't going to get to watch him for another couple months, and he's one of the biggest names in golf. So definitely a win for fans.
Yeah.
It feels like the PGA still could have waited them out, though. If they wanted to take the moral high ground, LIV wasn't really growing. Like Jacob just said, they were on the CW, and their broadcasts were getting pulled for top 50 animals of the past month. That's a real show they have on the CW, and it was bumping LIV broadcasts. It seems like the speed of this is shocking to me. I would not have expected this to happen right now. But I don't know. I don't know how long this has been in the works. Maybe it's been in the works from the beginning, as soon as Brooks and Phil took the deal. I don't know, but like Paul said, Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner, that guy looks like a fool, a clown.
Why?
Because he had a bunch of comments right from the beginning bashing the morality of LIV. And now he's joining, he's excited about it, he's pumped for it. He loves it. It's gonna grow, they're going to grow the game together now with LIV.
It's really, really interesting. Really, really, and I, like I said, I just can't wait to hear what role, and there's no doubt that the players, both in LIV and in the PGA, right? They had to be huge driving forces behind this thing.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, when you look at all like we're talking about guys that look. The other thing too, players, if you're allowed to play for a major, like Brooks Koepka has talked a lot through his career, and that's why he's been so divisive about how he wants to go play in a major. He doesn't really care about everything else. He just wants to play in the majors, and if he can play in the majors and win some majors, that's what matters. He doesn't care about the little tournaments. He doesn't care about winning the Memorial. So for these players that were getting exemptions to play and win majors, it hadn't happened yet, but now that Brooks had won a major, you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, he's going to get the exemptions. He's going to be back. He's going to keep playing in majors. He looks as good as he ever has, and especially after everything that he went through. If anybody had watched Full Swing, then you'd know that. Everything that he comes through, he comes out of it on the other side. He's winning a major, and now he gets to go back and get the money. He gets paid. He wins a major. He gets paid hundreds of millions of dollars. He comes back. He wins a major.
Gets the tour card back.
Gets the tour card back. Well, whatever it's called.
Yeah. It's going to be something to
Now,
it.
here we are. I mean, these guys, I think Elliot or I forget which one of you said it. It felt like they could have almost waited it out.
Yeah.
It felt like they could have waited this out. But
What do you think Brando Chambly?
oh, he is in shambles. He is in absolute shambles.
Well, I mean, Colin Morikawa tweeted out just a few minutes ago. So, I mean, here's where maybe I'm just totally out of whack and way off base. I'm just guessing. Colin Morikawa tweeted 40 minutes ago, I love finding out morning news on Twitter. Now, I don't know if that means he's surprised by all this is happening. Eric Engels is reporting a bunch of these tweets going out by PGA Tour golfers are really something. He said, I cannot believe the tour would make the decision to merge with LIV without informing its members. Kyle Porter, CBS. I'm sure Rory McIlroy is really pleased with the tour, rolling him out week after week to fight its battle so that in the end, Phil, Brooks, Bryson, DJ, and others could walk away with $500 million and reunification with the league that he defended and they defected. It's going to be very interesting to see this whole thing.
But I think we can all agree that this is probably the biggest sports story of the year, right?
Yep.
Is there one bigger than this? I mean, this completely changes the game of golf. This completely changes not the game, I guess, but
No, it does. It does though, because they're going to take the LIV format of golf too. It's going to be the team golf. It's going to change the sport.
oh, what?
So I that's not official, but what's going to happen is they're absolutely going to implement some of those LIV rules, or everybody joins a team. You know, those teams have like 8 people.
The aces, of course.
Yeah.
Massive
Right, how can you
aces.
forget
Well,
the
I
aces?
mean,
Yeah,
you
how
hit the
could you
nail on
forget?
Jay Monahan here in the release. Jay Monahan said in a memo to players that a thorough evaluation would determine how to integrate team golf into the game.
Oh, I'm in. I'm in for team golf.
That
I'm
I
in it
like.
too.
That I like. People struggle to latch onto one golfer. I think you get more fans to just latch onto a team, root for a team.
I'm in.
Monahan says in a phone interview moments ago with the Associated Press, LIV was going down their path, we were going down ours. And after a lot of introspection, you realize all this tension in the game is simply not a good thing. Can't argue with that.
Do you think we're going to have walkouts? Do you think the 1%ers like Rory are going to
No
skip
chance.
events? No chance?
Again, back to money. No way. No way. Look, they didn't get the money, the big PGA guys. They didn't get the money that the LIV guys got. But when LIV came around to try to do something to stave off this purge of their players, you know, they went out and created these additional sort of elevated events where guys had to play in 10 out of 12, and then they would get $12 or $15 million. McIlroy, I think it was after the U.S. Open. He didn't make the cut, if I remember right? Or the Masters, one or the other. and he decided that he wasn't going to play the following week. I think it might have been in South Carolina or somewhere
Heritage.
else. Cost him $3 million because he wasn't going to meet the 9 out of 12 or 10 out of 12 of this new thing that they created to try and pay guys a little bit more money. They decided to stay with the PGA Tour rather than going to LIV. I can't let, look, I do everything I can because I root for every single one of you and everybody in this room and me and everybody else. Make as much money as you possibly can. But I'm just worn out. And it doesn't matter what side of the political fence you come down on and all the other stuff. At the end of the day, and maybe at 59 I should know this to be true already, but at the end of the day, they can dress it up with all this nonsense about tension from the fans and tension of the players and all this other sort of stuff. You said a lot of things on the PGA Tour about a lot of other people, and I'm not going to bat for anybody in Saudi Arabia. It ain't happening, all right? We've all read enough through the years of some of the stuff that's gone on there, most recently an American journalist, right? And is there a tie-in? All those sorts of things going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. But don't talk to me about, it's like John Kerry.
Oh, no.
Don't talk to me about climate change and then log hundreds of thousands of miles on a private jet every single year. Don't talk to me about it. The second you open your mouth to talk about it, this is over, this conversation. It's done. You want to be a climate changer, just picking a random topic, and you want to make sure that every time you travel, you're getting on a commercial plane, you're driving, whatever it is you're doing, your electric car, God bless you. But, all these PGA guys, and look, I got really good friends who are hardcore PGA guys, and all they did was kill LIV. It's all they did, kill LIV, and kill the guys for going to doing, taking the dirty money, despite the fact that they were blinding themselves to the fact that companies they were already in bed with are doing business in Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, right? I mean, come on. Come on. Oh, shut up. You guys talk for a minute.
We're just letting you go, Tom. It's your show.
It really is crazy looking back at all of this. Now, in retrospect, knowing what has happened here with LIV Golf, it's crazy looking back. I would turn it on the CW every once in a while. I would, if I was flicking channels and I stumbled over it, I'd leave it on. But I wasn't, somebody watching LIV Golf every weekend or whatever.
I don't think those people exist.
No.
I never watched a second.
I don't think there's an audience for LIV Golf. But now there will be. Now there has to be. Yeah. So I don't know what their whole plan is going to be, but it's gonna like we said, it's going to be taking some of the ideas from LIV and shifting them over to PGA. I don't know how the contracts are going to work either. Do you think they'll null those contracts?
Who knows? Probably.
Because they all got signing bonuses, but what comes after that, I don't know what happens. Because I think last place for LIV events were getting $150K. If you just showed up to the event, you're getting $150K. So I don't know what's going to happen. Who on tour? Maybe I don't know. I don't know who are guys on tour. But Colin Morikawa, guys like that, are they going to now ask for more money from LIV? They can't fight it anymore. They've lost. So now they just have to take it. Are they going to start asking for money?
The biggest question here: are these guys going to start wearing shorts?
That's going to happen.
I mean, they're not going to play 3 rounds. They'll play 4-round tournaments.
There will be cuts still.
There will be cuts. They're not going to change that. PGA will get their way on that. Again, money, an extra round. But are these guys going to be able to wear shorts?
Are we going to see some shins?
Look, the best thing that came out of COVID in sports was that college basketball coaches didn't have to wear stupid suits on the sideline anymore. They can wear the quarter zips.
Suits are the best. Every coach should have to wear a suit.
Oh,
NBA
God.
and college.
Yeah. Everybody, feels a little more relaxed, feels like the coaches can actually breathe. Are we going to see some shorts here?
First, we need to see some shorts.
Okay.
And secondly, I think that more sports, you're talking about coaches and their attire, I think more sports should have to do what baseball does and wear a full uniform.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That looked really good. Andy Reid standing over there in a
Bill Belichick in shoulder pads and a helmet. We're talking Pop in a full Spurs uniform. It looked great, Tom.
Zach Taylor looked good.
He would look good.
Lean, fit, ready to roll.
Darn right.
Right? He looked like a player out there. He was a player.
Right?
I guess they were all players at some point in time, right?
Correct.
Well, your guy, Mouse Cop, he says, I'd rather have a cocktail with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia than ever have a drink at Sluggers.
Tom,
at Wrigley Field.
He bashes Sluggers all the time. You like Sluggers, right?
You know, it's okay. I mean, it's okay. I mean, there were a few others around there that when I was working there that I used to go to far more regularly than Sluggers.
What was your North Side bar of choice?
They changed the name of the one that I liked the best. It was down the right field line on the, what would that be, southeast corner, High Tops.
High Tops.
That was around for a long time. I think Harry Carey's is now in there, I believe. And then loved Murphy's.
AJ Worth says Murphy's is overrated.
Another place down the third base line, Bernie's, which is where we went to most of the time.
Most of the time.
Bernie's, which is still standing and going strong.
Love it.
Under the ownership, I believe, of Linda Dillman is still the name. Yes. See, good bar owners. You always remember their name.
Darn right.
If they're big leaguers.
All right, so that was our Live Golf. We'll see what happens. Maybe tomorrow when we come in here, we'll have some more details and we'll be able to figure some things out with that. But still, I think that's probably the biggest sports story of the year so far. But I don't think far behind is this whole gambling deal, Tom.
Yeah.
I don't think this gambling story is something that's going to be swept under the rug. And you know what it's going to do? Is it's just going to give more credence to the fact that people keep saying, oh, you know, so-and-so's got money on the game or so-and-so's got
right.
You know, whatever. And then a clip will come out of a player that just maybe didn't see the ball and it was an easy reception for the wide receiver and the DB made no play on the ball, whatever it might be. And they're saying, oh, this guy definitely had money on the game. Now in the back of your head, you're always going to be thinking, I really hope that guy didn't have it. I don't know. I just hope that it doesn't spiral and ever really compromise the integrity of the game.
I just don't understand where, like, the disconnect in these players you can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't do it. There are definitive rules. They've laid it out, and then they've also punished people who have broken the rules very harshly.
Calvin Ridley.
Right, Calvin Ridley. So I just don't understand what the disconnect is. The job that is giving you millions of dollars, the job that is, creating a future for your family has a rule that says you will lose this job, or at least in some capacity, you won't be able to work in this job for a time period if you break this rule. And still you are risking it and breaking the rule. I just don't understand where the disconnect is.
Well, I mean, and not only from a fiscal standpoint, and you're right about, trying to take care of your family forever, but I mean, your reputation forever.
Correct.
I mean, Pete Rose is no longer known as the all-time hits leader, by and large, through 3 or 4 generations now. He's known as some dude who gambled on baseball and he's been thrown out. Right. Yeah, I heard he was a great player.
I admit, so you're bringing up Pete Rose, obviously Cincinnati connection. When they initially didn't release who the player was that they were probing, who they were investigating, there was a lot of rumors because the Colts had just signed a veteran wide receiver that day, and just kind of the vagueness of the quote where it said this guy isn't a star, but most people would know him. There was a lot of rumors thrown around that it was Alec Pierce, who obviously played at the University of Cincinnati. And boy, if it was Alec Pierce, what a bad month of PR the University of Cincinnati would have had. I'm glad it's not him, but just Cincinnati being at the forefront of another gambling scandal would have just been mind-blowing that all this stuff happened in 1 month. But I'm glad it's not Alec Pierce.
You say you make the point, and I think you're probably right on this, Reed, about the way the league is handled this thing with their players. But I keep reading, in different articles and so forth, that so many of these players are saying they're not sure what the rules are.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, could you be? I mean, look, if these are true, that that you're gambling on NFL games, or especially if you're gambling on your own team. Well, now all of a sudden, I think, look, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that that's probably not a good idea. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to things like, the guys earlier that were suspended a few weeks ago for the Lions, right?
Right.
A couple of them were placing bets on basketball games in their car in the facility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And they're like, well, I mean, at least it was a reaction. I'm not saying that they were justified, not justified, whatever. I'm just saying you're starting to read a lot more that some of these guys aren't exactly sure what the deal is.
The Reds had a player last season that's openly slapped another player on our field because of gambling. Tommy Pham slapped Jock Peterson in the face because of a $25,000 fantasy football league.
Yeah.
So I think there definitely is a gray area. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what you do, but people are absolutely still gambling openly and not getting penalized for it.
Well, yeah, so if you're the player, why not just err on, just don't do it at all.
Correct.
Right? Like, if it doesn't matter if you're an NFL player, you don't gamble on college basketball or college football or whatever. If you have a job in professional sports and you are making large sums of money because you're just such a talented and gifted athlete, and you know that the precedent has been set over decades in different sports and baseball and then Calvin Ridley and all these things that are coming out. If you know the precedent is you can't gamble, why are you gambling on anything? On any sports. It's one thing if you go to the casino, go do that. But you just don't bet on a different sport. It's just simple.
All right, let me ask you this. And I don't know the answer to this, and I don't expect you, quite honestly, to know the answer to this. Any of you, open forum here. Do the rules apply to gambling if you work for a professional sports franchise? In this case, let's call it an NFL franchise. So if you're the guy who works in the marketing department, right? Maybe you're on the grounds crew. Maybe you're in accounting. Do these rules apply to those employees of the team? Anybody know?
I don't know.
I don't know. The only thing that I can speak from experience is, I mean, when I work at Xavier, I can't bet on anything that involves a Xavier athletic event. Now, I'm an independent contractor, so by my understanding of the rule, I don't have the same application of professional sports and other college sports, but I can't do anything that involves Xavier. Because, I mean, you never know. Like, I'm walking around down in the lot, you see somebody walking around with a boot. You see somebody, that guy's going to play. Maybe that guy's not going to play. You never know. So I can't do anything. I can't put any dollar on anything that involves Xavier. But these guys that are at the professional level, or other, like I've said a million times on the show, if you're a athlete or if you work in a college athletic department, you can't gamble on anything that involves either a college or a professional sport that's sanctioned by the NCAA, which is why a lot of college people will bet on NASCAR or on boxing or on UFC or on F1 because those sports aren't sanctioned by the NCAA. So when you get to the professional level, I think a lot of this is kind of new, uncharted territory because it's just since 2018 that this has really exploded at this level. Sports betting has been around forever, but at the level that it's at right now, it hasn't really been nationally renowned as much as it has in the last 5 years. And I think everybody's still just kind of figuring it all out because you even hear of a lot of these sports books and everybody that's still navigating through and trying to figure out what's the best way to write these laws in different states. And you hear Ohio, they're already trying to go back and maybe revise some things that they are realizing now 5-6 months into this that, we didn't see this coming, or we need to go back and correct this. So you get to a point with these colleges and especially now, like you're talking about as it relates to this, in professional sports where, you had the Lions people that are gambling on property, whatever. But it seems to me, and this is like when people would ask me about like betting on stuff and how you kind of manage things when you're kind of closely tied to a college. It's like if you have to kind of think about it, maybe just don't do it. If you have to sit there and think in your head, am I going to get in trouble or get fired for this? Maybe you just don't do it. You just err on the side of caution. But clearly a lot of these guys aren't listening to that advice, so what does it matter?
Well, PB's Go says, hey, it's not new territory at all. Gambling breeds temptation and open things up for nefarious behaviors. That no doubt, and as far as players are concerned, nefarious behaviors, especially how they could, partake in doing something to determine the outcome of a game. No doubt about it. And getting yourself into, big-time trouble with some maybe not so good guys, perhaps. This is a thing that I imagine this won't be the last story we've read like this.
No. It probably won't be the last story we've read this summer.
Oh, you're spot on.
The NFL gambling policy that I just put up online says that the rules apply to all full and part-time club and league personnel, including league office employees, players, owners, coaches, trainers, game officials, any security personnel, and game day stadium personnel. So I assume that includes anyone that has any association.
Well, that would be somebody who's even, right, ticket taker,
pro shop,
right,
everyone.
So in high school, when I was selling programs at Paul Brown Stadium, can't gamble.
I almost wonder in that case you're employed by a different company,
right?
Who is in a bound agreement to do a job or multiple jobs with Team X, Bengals, whoever it might be. Hard to say there, but the bottom line is that you answered the question. Thank you, Jacob. That if you're working in accounting and you're some guy who like a lot of us out there, you want to put $20 on the Reds over the Dodgers tonight. Well, if you're working for the Reds, you better not do it.
Right.
Or you could be gone. Doesn't matter if you're making $35,000 or whether you're making $35 million.
Like Paul said, if you have to think twice about it, if you have to look and say, hey, this isn't, maybe I shouldn't do this, you just shouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually these guys are going to figure it out and learn the lesson. And the other thing, too, is it's so easy to trace now because all these guys are doing this stuff online. Now, I can't speak to the Colts deal. But when you're talking about going into a parking lot, it's all online. They have all your tax information. They have your social security number. They know who you are.
Calvin Ridley used his phone number to sign up online. That's how they found him.
Yeah, it's not hard at all for these guys to get tracked. And when you're doing things that trip off the system, where if you're putting in, let's say, $50 bets time and time again, and then all of a sudden you put in a $2,000 bet, you're not going to get suspended. But that's going to trip something in the system because you're going outside of your normal unit size. That's all these online things. It's tracked by regulators that regulate the regulators who regulate the regulators. I mean, we are like 3 rows deep on this, on the gambling in each state. And each state has their own systems, and some systems track it, some system. It's just it is just there's no way to beat this because Tom, to tie off the theme of this show here. It's always all about the money, and if you're jeopardizing the integrity of people's money, it's all going to come back to finding a way to just follow that bread trail.
All right, let me ask you this, because I don't want to speak for Elliot because I don't know for sure, or Jacob for sure. You guys occasionally gamble on an NFL game?
Yes,
okay.
I do it more than occasionally.
All right, so then
I lose frequently.
This is a Gamblers Anonymous segment of our show.
Okay.
All right. It is pointed out, I'm curious the answer to this question because, look, I have many, 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 many vices. One of them is not gambling. Never been a gambler. Doesn't make me good. Doesn't make me bad. I'm just not a gambler. Pointed out here, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this point because I've heard this from some people before, and others will argue against this vehemently. Fred says, I'll admit betting on NFL games. It has made me not like sports as much.
I disagree. I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah, I disagree.
You watch the game more, you get into it, you learn more because you're watching the games more, you're betting on it, you're taking closer attention to this. But it does warp your brain. It does warp your brain into watching sports. You no longer are worried so much about the outcome. You're worried about the spread, and it's always in your brain. Like you always are thinking, like if you have money on Thursday Night Football and it's a 6-point spread, you're no longer worrying about who's going to win this game, which way is it going to go. You're worried, is this team going to win by 7 or not? it completely warps your mindset watching a game. And I'm new to gambling. I've only been doing it for about a year and a half. And it is completely warped.
Yeah, I think at least from my perspective of it, like I really haven't bet on much lately, as we talked about here. But the one thing that Reed has said, when you're really in it and you're betting on everything, every day, you're betting on one game a day or whatever, you get to a point where there would be times when we'd come in here on the show and I would be talking with Reed or Casey before a show and I'd be like, God, could you imagine, like, so-and-so won last night. And I'm thinking, wait, no. They didn't win.
Right.
They just covered +4. And I thought, well, it's close enough. Well, in my head they won because I won the bet. But, yeah, it does help you follow the leagues and it helps you follow the teams and everything more closely. But I don't know. It is a very weird – it's a very weird area.
Let me put it this way. I know several people that bet quite frequently. I don't bet on the Bengals games a whole lot because I don't want to be skewed over just watching the game as a fan because I know that gambling on it will give me a completely different lease on how I view this game. So when it comes to a Bengals game, I very rarely put a wager on it because I just want to watch it as I used to watch sports before I gambled. Paul mentioned it right there. You watch a college basketball game. Oh, they played really well last night. Oh, they lost by 8, but they covered the 10-point spread. I thought they played well.
Yeah.
It just warps your brain entirely.
Gentlemen?
It doesn't really apply to NFL because I really watch those NFL games anyway. But college basketball, regular season baseball, I'm betting on Orioles Nationals at 5 o'clock in the afternoon that I wouldn't be watching otherwise. So it's a way that I find either $10, $15, $20 here and there. You can fill your day watching sports that you wouldn't watch otherwise. So that's the way I think about it.
All right.
And to the chat member who posed that question, I think he might have been talking about what Reed was talking about. Because if you bet on the Bengals and they lose, it's a double loss, and you feel horrible about everything. Because that could be a reasonable thing. I don't bet on the Bengals either, just for that same reason. I don't want to feel like a double loser if they lose and I lose my bet. But it absolutely brings more eyes to the sport. I care about sports significantly more because I have something on the line.
I bet on the Bengals if they are underdogs. Because
okay.
I do
All right,
not
well, that's
want
a strategic play.
Because I do not want them to, say, be 6-point favorites, win by 5, and then have a pissed off week because they won and I didn't win money.
Well, and look, I think we should say with all of this, and Fried Baloney gets into this, says people legit gamble their families away. You may as well be picking up a meth pipe. Okay, and then, Steve jumps in and says, hey, I can see where betting would affect your enjoyment of sports. Imagine the guy who is betting beyond his means and affecting his family. Those are the people I feel for. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. Those aren't the people we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I hope not.
Right.
I mean, I think we're talking about, like you guys are talking about, $10, $15 here or there, a college basketball game. Not something that all of a sudden is going to put you in a position where you can't make your rent payment or your mortgage payment. And your family's going to be thrown out on the streets. We're not talking about that.
No.
We're just talking about, if you put a $20 bet on the Bengals to cover against the Ravens, it was pointed out, as I mentioned, the question was asked, or the point was made, that since he started gambling, he doesn't enjoy it as much. Nick Kirby says, I basically only watch sports that I bet on.
Yeah.
How about that? And then Mark Fetters, new to the chat. Everything in moderation, men. Everything in moderation.
Except for $3 beers tonight at Great American Ballpark.
Amen.
No moderation there, Tom.
How about a good fried bologna sandwich? Got me thinking.
Oh, Tom, you're speaking of, you don't. There was
a little cheese on there, right?
Tom, there was a time in my life where I would exclusively tweet about bologna sandwiches. I eat a bologna sandwich probably 3 nights out of the week as a meal. I love bologna.
Even now?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Really?
I love bologna.
You put it in you put it in the pan, right?
Yeah, fried up.
Okay, fried. You put a little cheese on there?
Oh yeah, little mayo.
Oh yeah.
Little mustard.
Lettuce, maybe.
I mean, if I got some lettuce, I normally when I go to the grocery, I just get bologna.
We have somebody in the chat named Hamster Sacks. That just took my my thought of a good fried bologna sandwich right in the tank. Right in the tank. But he does say that Tom is turning Hamilton. That's okay. I love Hamilton. Come here to work every single day.
Damn right, Tom. Great town.
No doubt about it.
We're gonna get you at River's Edge sometime this summer for one of these cover bands.
Taylor Swift.
Well, we've got. I don't know what kind of
I
music.
love Taylor Swift music. I'd be in for that. I mean, I can't afford to go to the real one like BLP over here.
It's true.
But, you know.
I'm pulling it up, but we got. I don't know if you're an AC/DC guy.
What other? You know, I mean, I've seen AC/DC, the real AC/DC in concert.
We got
solid. I've seen him a couple of times.
We got Pink Floyd.
Not a big Floyd guy.
Whoa. You're a Rolling Stones guy, aren't you?
Big Rolling Stones guy.
We've got Satisfaction, Rolling Stones cover band, August 31st on a Thursday.
Well, there'll be a. Oh no, there won't. That might be in the works.
I'll drive back up for it.
Heck yeah, guys.
Let's get the whole crew out.
Satisfaction.
The name of the band is Satisfaction.
Satisfaction.
Okay. All right. Just give me a couple other names that are like in there. A couple of other you said Pink Floyd. You said
Pink Floyd,
AC/DC,
Van
the Rolling
Halen,
Stones,
AC/DC.
Van Halen, solid.
Led Zeppelin. There's an 80s.
I mean, for all we know, David Lee Roth might be in that spinoff band.
Right. On 4th of July, we've got a band called That Arena Rock Show. All the big hair bands come here and they just play different 80s music. So right up your alley, Tom.
That is
I'll see you there.
right up my alley. Tracy Jones was into those hair bands at one time. He had to be, right, Tracer? Good morning.
Good morning. You know, I've been to a lot of concerts, and I'll tell you why. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I had some friends that worked at the Fabulous Forum back years ago, and all the bands would play. And so there was probably 10 guys that worked at the Forum. Well, we used to sneak in and watch the concerts for free. And our seats were right there. I mean, we had the best seats because the producers would come. They wouldn't come. They would have the seats, but they're old bastards, right? They aren't going to like to see AC/DC, with Bon Scott. So we would see, all these concerts. And I'm really not a big fan, Aerosmith 8 times.
Yep.
I mean, I go back to, AC/DC when, for those about to rock, all those great, but I've seen Dolly Parton. I've seen the Jackson 5.
Yep.
I've seen all the groups, and it was quite an experience. But you mentioned some of the groups. I don't like Pink Floyd. You have to be a stoner. I'm sure Reed's in that area. That's Pink Floyd. I don't like Van Halen with David Lee Roth. I like him with Sammy Hagar. You remember Sammy Hagar played in Montreux.
I cannot believe you just said that, but go ahead. I can't even believe any human being would say they like Van Halen better with Sammy Hagar than David Lee Roth. I mean, come on. All their big hits and great music was when David Lee Roth was there. I mean, come on. Going back to Jamie's Crime. I mean, all that stuff. Come on. Name me one song that Van Halen did with Sammy Hagar that was worth a hoot.
Rock Candy. Oh, that's Montrose. I was a big Montrose. I really like Sammy Hagar. He looks great. I mean, he's in his 70s, I think. He looks like I think he's 72. He looks like he's 70. I mean, he really is kicking some ass. Big fan of Sammy Hagar. And not a fan of David Lee Roth. He's a goofball.
Well, he is a goofball. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. Hey, what are your thoughts? I don't know if we were talking a lot earlier today. You have any thoughts on this whole LIV PGA Tour thing that they're combining today? That's kind of like the biggest story in all the sports this morning that, after all the legal disputes and haggling and on and on and on and on and players leaving and signing up with LIV and now all of a sudden, everybody's one big happy family. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to look at it, Tom.
Okay.
And I apologize. I didn't
okay.
come prepared. It's like I really don't know much about golf. Now, if you ask me about upcoming strip bars, I'm all over it. If you want me to give you that breakdown. But golf, not so much. Hey, I've got something for you. I got 2 things for you guys. Are you ready for this?
Ready.
Do you want a baseball topic or do you want something not on baseball related?
While we're off of baseball for the time being, and we are going to get to baseball, let's just stay with the off baseball for a minute, if that's okay with you.
Okay, I want your opinion on this. This is a true story, and it just happened about 4 days ago. A client of mine is a real estate agent. A son whose mom died hires my client to clean out the house and then is going to have the listing of the house. But as it is with so many people and so many older people, a lot of people are hoarders. Yep. I mean, you go into old people's houses and there's junk everywhere. So it's a big project. So my client goes in there on day 2. It's like a 3-day job. She has a worker with him. They go and clean out this house. One of the workers walks out with a dresser drawer. And my client says, "Did you check the drawers?" Now, this is a true story. He says, "No." He says, "Everything's been junk." I mean, everything's been junk. Really not much to keep anything. She goes, "Let me look through it." It's a sock drawer. She ends up finding $15,000. Honest to God store. I mean cash. So you can imagine what that looks like in a sock drawer. Pairs of socks, hundreds stuffed in there. That's what old people do. You got to kind of go through old people. I found, when my mom died, I found a bunch of silver coins that no one had talked about. So you have to go through the house and look at it. So here's the dilemma she's in. Financially, she's hurting. Bad. Got some credit card debt.
Let me make sure. Let me interrupt real quick. I just want to make sure who the she is. The she is a woman who has paid the money to go into the house and clean it all up.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Go ahead.
So she thinks about it. She has the $15,000. She needs his $15,000. She needs it. Sits on it for 2 days. Doesn't tell her husband. Doesn't say anything to her husband. She's got this stored in a drawer of $15,000. I don't even know what that really looks like. And finally made the decision to give it back to the son who had hired her to clean out the house and to put the home on for sale. And I have to ask you guys, what would you do? Thom, what would you do? What would the ham and eggers do? Because you could justify keeping that $15,000, right? You're hired to clean out the place. No one would ever know. You're kind of in tough times. Do you keep that $15,000 or do you give it back? She gave it back. And do you know what he gave her in return? What do you think's fair? Finding $15,000. What do you think's fair to give back?
Well, look, if the son, and I'm assuming for a second the son is probably in a good place financially, right? He's going to sell that house and make whatever proceeds. So
$2 million.
If you're at, well, okay, well, look, I don't care if it was $200,000. If you're asking me the question, what would I have done? I would have given the money back. But if I were the son, I'd say to her, you keep all 15. You found it. I didn't want anything to do with taking my busy time. I didn't have time to go clean it up. I would have never found it. Lord knows where all that would have ended up. Maybe in some trash place. I have no idea what they were going to do with all this stuff. But
throw it in a
landfill. Right. So if I were the guy, the son, I'd say, hey, you found the $15,000. You keep the $15,000. Guys, what would you do?
Yeah.
Let's go around the horn here. We've got Reed,
and
we've got Paul, and we've got Jacob, who you have not yet met, Tracy, officially. Let's start with Reed Mouse.
Would I take the money?
Yeah. Honest.
Probably. I'm not an honest man. I'm not an honest man.
Well, you always,
I'm from Hamilton.
You know why? No, wait a minute, Reed. You know why? Because you're a liberal and a Democrat. You guys like free money, don't you?
That is true.
So
that is spot on. All the free stuff we can possibly get. All the free stuff we can possibly get.
Look, I'll be honest, Tracy. You're going to dangle some money in front of me. It's going to be very hard for me to say no.
Wow.
I am amazed. Reed, Reed, we've heard from Reed and Paul on this. Let's get to Jacob and Elliot. Okay, Jacob, what would you do if you found the $15,000?
Well, I'd like to have a different answer than the two men over there, but I think I'd hold on to it as well. You know how many $3 beers I could get tonight with $15,000?
It's a lot.
It's a lot of $3
Still not
beers.
enough money for as many beers as we're going to drink.
Finding $15,000.
Oh, gentlemen.
Wow.
You can't.
This is
What's
amazing.
the quote from the Bible about selling your soul? I mean, all right, go ahead. You may not know what we're talking about here, Elliot.
Yes.
All right. So
But-
you
but
know
I
what we're
heard-
talking
but
about.
I heard we're finding 15 grand and we're deciding whether to keep it.
Well, we were finding 15 grand. We're struggling. We were paid, right? We were paid by somebody to come in and clean out a relative's house.
Okay.
Right? So the guy who's paying them is saying, look, I ain't got time to do it. You go do it. Right?
Yes.
They're cleaning out the stuff, which Tracy points out may have wound up in a landfill for all we know. And so you find the $15,000 in a sock drawer. Are you going to tell the person that's paying you to do it, you found the 15 grand, you're just going to keep it?
Okay, so I look at this from a gambling perspective. If it's about the gambling,
Oh, my God.
Okay, wait, hear me out. If it's about,
Oh, my God.
If it's about the gambling week I just had, I would keep the 15 grand. I'm going to need it for my next week's bets.
Correct.
But if I'm off a good week, that money's going to good gambling karma. So now you give it back, you donate it, do whatever you need to do with it. Don't keep it. The gambling gods will see that, and they will reward you with more bets.
I think realistically, what I would probably do, you gotta figure out.
No, you've already answered, Paul.
You gotta figure out.
No,
I'll be honest.
No. You're
Okay,
feeling bad now.
No. Can I be completely
You're
honest?
a liberal elite.
Can I be?
No.
No.
Than everybody else is taking over.
Can I be
here.
completely honest with you, Tom? I was working on something on YouTube. Thought we were talking about LIV Golf. I thought we were talking about taking LIV Golf money. I missed the first part of the story.
Okay, all right. If that's the case,
What I would probably do with finding $15,000 would probably be to you got to figure out a way to get a cut of it though. There's no chance you can just find $15,000 and not expect to get like $5,000 of
Maybe
it.
you only found 10,000.
You got
You think you're going to
700.
be giving someone 15 grand that is rightfully theirs, and they're just going to give you 5 grand of it?
You got to figure out a way to get a cut of that money.
oh my
There's
God.
no way.
I
You got to figure out a way to get a cut of that
This is
money.
Tracy. If this is not now, think about who's in this room and having this conversation. For
I
a
know.
minute, right?
I know.
I mean, we've got private school,
Catholic
private
school.
school, private school, private school, public school. You're a
Yep.
public school guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a big difference in age. So you start with the big spread in age where you and I are compared to these guys. I am in shock. Who in the hell
I
am
am
I
too.
working with around here?
It's really, it's really not even funny. You poor bastards are going to go through your life. You've got bad karma. You take that 15,000, right, Tom? That's bad karma. I'm a financial advisor. You think I'm sitting there thinking if I could get this money, this money, this money? You got to be honest. It's not your money. It's not your. It's 15,000 goes to the son that hired you to clean out the house. You're also getting that sale, right, of the house. You're getting the listing. And for all 4 of those JOs to come out and say they would keep the money, what does that say about where we are in society? No wonder we're going to get screwed over. You guys are just selfish.
All right,
You
so
should-
let's hear the end of the story. What end? So when all is said and done, these 4 in the camp, they stick it in their pocket, and then they're looking over their shoulder the rest of their lives. You and I are in the camp where we're going to give the money back. Now, I said if I were the dude, I'd tell her to keep all 15, but that's just me. What happened?
Got the $700. The son gave $700 to my client, and that was it. She never
You have
told
got,
her
you,
husband-
you have got to be kidding me.
What? Just 700?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. That's all she got. That's all she got. I think that's
See,
weak.
I
think
gotta
that's
tell
the weak one.
I got to tell you, I think his action is just as bad as if she stuck the 15 grand in her pocket. That is
I agree with that.
despicable. This dude
I
is
think
going to
so.
make $2 million. You talk about somebody taking cash that wasn't theirs.
Right.
I mean, let's
right.
put this thing into perspective for a second.
It's not it.
All of a sudden, the son, what in the hell did he do to earn the $2 million?
Nothing.
Zero,
Nothing.
right? And now all of a sudden
well,
he's sticking $2 million in his pocket, and then $14,300 more that wasn't his, and giving this poor woman $700.
But it took her, Tom, 2 days. She sat on that money for 2 days. How bad do you think it is if you don't tell your husband? I think that's a little, because I think the husband would have said, keep the money, because they need the money. So that's a tough call, though. It is not for me, not for us, but for you to keep it, man. I'd be looking over my shoulder.
Well,
that's
why
just not right.
That's why I'm keeping it. The guy's too greedy. He's only going to give $700 back for the lady who found it.
You're going to do better with that money than they will.
Correct. He's being too greedy. So we're taking it out of his money. I mean, $700. He's going to be making thousands and millions on the house, and he's only going to give up $700.
We are doing the good here.
Right.
Oh my God.
Put it back into the U.S. economy via Betfred.
Correct.
That's right.
Listen, Tom, you're talking to 4 kids who went to Catholic school. Have you ever been to a Catholic mass?
Oh, boy.
They bring the basket
Yeah,
around. They don't
do.
give you money at mass.
I know they do. I know they do.
They take it
You
from
know
you.
what,
Yeah.
Tom? Let me chime in here.
That's why Martin Luther came along. That's why he came along. Go ahead.
Here's a good point. You know, that $15,000 would probably go out to pay a lot of that college tuition debt. That's probably what, $120,000 and $130,000 for you freeloaders, isn't it? I mean, how much is your student loan debt? You 4? Can you imagine that?
Tom, I went to
There's
liberal
no
arts.
student loan debt in this room.
Oh, there's a lot. Boy. It's just not getting paid because we keep voting Democrats in there. They're just going to get rid of it all.
All right, let's shift gears here. All right, let's face it. All right, here we go. All right, you wanted to talk about something baseball-wise.
Okay, yes, Tom, and this is right up your alley. You really love this stuff. And I asked the question to ChatGPT, your favorite AI bot. You love ChatGPT, don't you? No?
My son saw the clip that was sent out by our group here on social media about that, and they had to, shorten it up and tighten it up and edit it up and everything else. I mean, I still can't believe it, and I am sure that I will be right on board with what you're about to tell me. Let's hear it.
Okay, here's my question to ChatGPT. I said, list the top 5 cities where Major League Baseball should get an expansion team.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Are you ready for this?
Okay, all right.
Because Tom, this concerns you because expansion, you could there's a real good chance that you could get a job. You should have a job. Portland's probably not a good place, and that's my number 5 city. I've played in Eugene, Seattle. You're a little too edgy for those people. You want to keep them away. So number 5.
Thank you very much. I'm well aware of that already.
Yes, just thought I'd point that out in case you don't know. Portland is 5. Number 4, do you want to guess?
Let's say Montreal.
Nashville.
No, okay, Nashville. All right.
Number 3.
Montreal.
Is that just going to be your answer all the way?
That's where I want him to go. If I'm going to get a job, let me go there.
It's Charlotte.
Okay.
Good city.
Yeah.
Here's the 1. Here's the 2 right here. Number 2.
Number
For
2.
expansion.
You said Charlotte and Nashville already. You said Portland. Does Las Vegas count in this deal?
Las Vegas is number 2.
Okay.
Okay. And number 1, go ahead, Tom, take a guess. Best city for Major League Baseball to have an expansion team. Go ahead, Tom. You got this one?
Orlando.
See? You were going, and then you just Montreal, Tom.
Montreal, yeah.
Montreal.
I have no problems with any of those sites. I don't know enough about Portland. I mean, they lost an NBA team. It would be the only professional sports team, right? Oh, no, they're still in the NBA.
Yeah,
Seattle lost.
say
I'm sorry. Portland's still
there.
So they have an NBA team. Baseball, I'm sure the population is there for it. I don't know how that would affect Seattle much. I know that's a pretty good drive, pretty good flight. They're further away than you think they are looking at a map. And then even drifting down into Northern California and the Giants. But what would you put at 1, 2, and 3?
Well, I would put Montreal number 1. In playing for the Expos, I don't know if you guys know this, but I did play for the Montreal Expos. And the problem with the Expos was the stadium. And Tom, you know this because you broadcast games there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't. It was very cold, right? Very sterile.
Yeah.
And I like ballparks where I'm really close to the fans. You know what I mean? I like to interact with the fans. If I see someone booing me or something, I can go in the stands, slap them, give them a correction in the back of the head. So I like fans close to where I'm at so we can kind of have that connection. So I think that's what Montreal was missing, my opinion.
Yes, I
think Vegas
agree 100%. Yes.
Vegas is a good fit. And I do like Charlotte. I like that city a lot. I think it's booming. So I think that's pretty good. But Montreal's my number one pick.
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte, I've never been able to put a finger on the whole Charlotte thing. I mean, I've done a ton of football games there, and, most of the growth in Charlotte is in the suburbs. I mean, like a lot of other places. Their downtown's okay. It's nothing great, but it's nice. I mean, it's safe, it's clean, all those kinds of things.
Right.
Unlike a lot of American cities right now. But I don't know. I just look at the whole population down there, and it's a couple of hour drives from the big triangle of Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and then there are some other decent sized cities. It would be a decent little drive to get there. Greensboro and some of those places. South Carolina, you'd bring some people up because Charlotte's right on the border. Maybe, I guess. Maybe. I think a Nashville franchise would really hurt the Reds. What do you think?
Oh, you do?
I do.
I don't know. Nashville's booming too. That's a good spot. Let me throw a curveball into this mix. What about taking expansion overseas? We've talked about it on the show. Maybe that's a better answer. Maybe somewhere in Japan or even China. I mean, who knows? I think that could be an answer.
I think that your best bet is going to be, if they're going to look at outside the United States, and Montreal notwithstanding, would be Mexico City. Just because of the sheer size of the place, right? It's one of the 5 largest cities, I think, in North America.
Maybe.
Can you imagine the elevation there?
Yeah, the elevation is taller than Denver.
Good point.
Yeah. So, hey, what'd you think of Andrew Abbott's game last night? Did you watch any of that?
I thought he was excellent. I was really impressed. I think he has really, not to dive too inside baseball and be nerdy, but I thought he had real quick arm action. I thought his fastball
What does
really
that mean?
exploded.
What does that mean?
It just, his arm action, like you have guys that kind of slow their arms down and you could kind of pick the ball up. I bet he's really tough to pick the ball up because his arm action is so quick. I was really impressed. What did he give up? 1 hit or
one
something
hit.
like that?
Yep.
It was very impressive. I mean, here we go again. How does that future look? Is that a guy that you could put number 1, number 2 at the top of the rotation? I mean, can you imagine having Lodolo and Abbott, your 2 lefties, and then you have Hunter Green? Ashcraft's, I don't know what's happened to him, but you just need a couple more starters, and you're looking pretty good. And then, of course, the rumor is India moving over to play third base. That's a question mark. And Dela Cruz coming to play shortstop. You move McClain over to second base, and all of a sudden you got a pretty good infield.
Oh, I don't think
So
there's
a lot
any
of good
doubt
things.
about it. Well, I mean, it's just what they got to figure out they're going to do. Tracy, one thing we've talked about De La Cruz and the whole thing, and but we were talking with Charlie Goldsmith earlier, covers the Reds and the Bengals, and now all of a sudden though you start to look at least for the rest of this season, and I think we all agree that Spencer Steer is a candidate for the Rookie of the Year. Right?
Yes.
He's been playing a lot of first base. If you're going to move India to third, then you have pretty much made the decision that Steer is going to be a first baseman / DH. But when you're looking at reps at first base or DH, okay, you've got Steer. We know the whole situation with Tyler Stevenson, who's not having a good year. I don't know if anybody on the planet is more deserving to come to the big leagues than Encarnacion Strand. I mean, the guy's hitting 350. His on-base percentage is like 450. Slugging percentage leads the league. He's got 14 bombs in 34 games. Just hit a grand slam 2 nights ago. And then you've got him in the mix. Oh, and by the way, Votto's out on a rehab. So, there's going to be the sentimentality of bringing Votto and getting him back and playing because he's Joey Votto. But is that at the expense of seeing what Steer and Encarnacion can do?
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of a sad situation, but Votto's going to get in there and play. I don't know if India can play third base. I mean, he played at Florida. Wasn't he a third baseman when
He was.
drafted? I mean, if you're having trouble playing second base, you're definitely going to have some problems at third base. Third base is a tough position. And then you have that Marte kid. He just got Player of the Month or something in the Southern League, didn't he?
Yep.
I mean, he's a stud. So you've just got so many good players that are coming up. I'm excited, but they need to just keep adding those pitchers. Add those pitchers, and the guys that you don't think that are going to be in the mix, your impact players, then you're going to have to trade them. And remember, it's trade for that number one guy. It could be number one arm. You're not going to trade number one arm. That might be a low A or even in rookie ball, but has the potential to come up here and just throw gas. I like the hard throwers, though.
Oh, yeah. And what was, in a day or two, we're going to get into a little bit about Danny Grave, former, Reds reliever, all-time saves leader. Went on social media today about an article written about how now all of a sudden we're seeing more and more and more and more at the major league level. Impact, big-time stuff. More and more Tommy John surgeries again. More and more guys throwing 100 miles or wanting to throw 100 miles an hour, right?
Right.
We'll get into that another time. Here's a question I have for you. How much of an advantage, if an advantage at all, is it for a guy like Abbott or anybody else who is pitching for the first time against a team that has never seen him before? Most people say that is to the advantage of the pitcher. True or false?
Without a doubt. Of course, the Brewers have the scouting report on Abbott, but it's not like going in and facing the guy. It is going to be, you make a really good point, Tom, second time around. After you get a chance to watch this guy and you face him, they're going to make adjustments, and then he needs to make adjustments. Remember, baseball and sports is the ability to adjust. If you can adjust, then you'll be all right. But the advantage definitely goes to Abbott the first time around. There's no doubt about that.
So does that mean we shouldn't get excited about what he did quite yet? And let's just kind of see, if he pitches against the Brewers. Because, look, for the extended period of time here, he's going to be facing everybody for the first time, right? I mean, his next start will come against St. Louis after this series against the Dodgers or whoever. So are you suggesting that, let's let this thing breathe and not get too excited yet? I mean, yes, happy for what happened for the kid. But as far as the long haul is concerned, let's everybody take a couple of steps back.
Well, number one, let me point out that, his stats in AA and AAA pretty good.
Yep.
Really good.
Yep.
He was a top 100 prospect. So obviously, there's no secret this guy can pitch. I played the game, and I see things you people don't see.
It's why we have you on the show.
He's got a very good fastball. He's got a good curveball. Hit and spot. I mean, he's going to be a really good pitcher. I think we're doing all right. We are doing all right. I think the Reds are in good shape.
Is that a French word from Montreal for yes?
Here's the deal, Tom, and I just said it. I played for the Reds, right? Once a Red, always a Red. I can say we if I'm talking about the Giants. Once a Giant, always a Giant. That's why I was invited to Reds Fest, Giant Fest, Expo Fest, Tiger Fest.
Whoa. Hang on a second. You just said something that caught me off guard there. I thought that you were not invited to Reds Fest. I misunderstand that?
Touche. See, I was just talking, and see, I got to watch it with you because you're a really good listener. I haven't been invited to Reds Fest in 3 years. 3 years.
Reed, do you have any thoughts on that? Reed, any thoughts on that?
How can they not let an icon in the Cincinnati Reds pantheon like Tracy Jones not go to Reds Fest? Not only is he a former player, but he's in the media. And who else would you want better representing the franchise than Tracy Jones?
I think if you look at my body of work, and I think there's so much body of work, the extra innings show. I mean, you go back, and I don't like to brag about my stats, but at one time in 1988, I was tied with Rickey Henderson for the most stolen bases in baseball with 9 before I tore up my knee. I mean, I'm not talking about that, but I think I've done some things that would qualify me to show up to Reds Fest. Or would you rather watch some guy who's playing in, Dayton I don't know. They have a lot of young guys there at that Reds Fest, don't they, Tom?
Well, they have a ton of young guys, and if you're asking me that question, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that if you were to come there as opposed to some young man, and God bless him, once he gets to the big leagues, good for him. Come on back to Reds Fest every single year. But if it's going to be some dude that 99% of us have never heard of, it's playing down in fill in the blank,
Yeah.
Tracy Jones got to be there.
Yeah. I don't think they liked it when I set up my own table there at Reds Fest a few years ago and I charged everybody $5 for an autograph. I don't think that went over well. I thought it was a good deal, but,
You might be onto something there. All right, my man. Well, thank you for your time as always. Have a great day. We'll catch up on Thursday.
All right, ham and eggers, you guys have a good day. By the way, just to give you a heads up, do you want to know what a JO looks like? I might be in a shirt and tie on Thursday for the show because I'm meeting with a client on Thursday. So if you see me shirt and tie, no hat, that's a bad look, I know, but I might have to wear a shirt and tie on Thursday. So I apologize in advance.
I didn't know you owned a shirt and tie, Tracy. I thought you were just a T-shirt, Tommy Bahama T-shirt, and backwards hat kind of guy.
One.
Just own one. That's all you need.
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's a white shirt, starched, with a purple tie. Have a purple tie, a red tie, and that's it.
Is the purple tie to signify your regality? Because you're almost pretty much a royal here, at least in northern Kentucky, but certainly in the Cincinnati metropolitan area.
No, not the purple. I like the purple, but I also wear a green tie because you know how I'm into money. But I wouldn't take $15,000 from someone. You guys are going to hell.
You make that in one day of day trading. So,
Tracy, we're on the same page on that last one.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Disgusting. Embarrassing.
All right, my man. Have a good day.
See you guys.
Well, I'm really surprised by all you guys.
I'll be honest.
And even members of the chat. I mean, they are all pretty much on board, straight across the board there with me. There are a couple of others in there, but I mean, there are guys like you have got to be kidding. PB's goes, bad juju. Taking money that isn't yours. Oh, boy. I mean, you guys just got killed. All four of you.
If you're wondering how I'd sleep at night knowing that I stole $16,000, it'd be right on my side with my hip just slanted up because there's a fat stack of cash right in the right pocket.
Real Spirit Cat perhaps said it best. If I was Tom, I'd have to take a shower before I left those studios today. Boy. Everett saying, Tom, thanks. You're on the right side.
We know we're on the wrong side. We know that that's the wrong thing to do. Like, there's not like some devil and angel on our shoulders trying to help us with the decision.
Like Animal House.
Right. We know what the right decision is.
We're the
just
dean's daughter.
not to do it.
I wouldn't announce. I'm not announcing that I'm taking it. I'm just going to take it.
Right.
This whole big. Why are we making this a big spectacle? I'm just putting it in my pocket.
Right.
Nobody knows.
I will do more good with that money than he will.
Okay.
All right, we do have a cherry on top before we get out of here.
All right,
Tom.
let's have it.